Alright everyone, welcome back. So I just got done watching Oppenheimer. Great movie. But we're going to get into the prospect pool overviews yet again today with the Minnesota Wild. And the Wild actually have a pretty good prospect pool, I'm not going to lie. People say that Minnesota is this team that can't get past the first round. Well, with these prospects, they definitely should help out with that. However, there are some questions that do lie within some of these prospects. We'll start off here with Marco Rossi. Rossi is a center from Feldfurich, Austria. I almost said Australia, but one of the first guys we've covered from that area of the world. He's 5'9", 183 pounds, and of course, he's gone through his share of troubles. He was diagnosed with COVID, dealt with injuries, and it's kind of been a rough path since being drafted, trying to make it to the NHL. But this past year, he played 19 games with the Wild, and it was notable that he really didn't play all too well during those 19 games. Only had 1 point, and that was very notable in the hockey world. Everyone was talking about that. And yes, it is unfortunate, but sometimes development happens like that. It's delayed. But in 53 games with the Iowa Wild, he played very well. Had 16 goals, 35 assists for 51 points. Being nearly a point per game in the AHL, is very, very good. So I like that a lot for Rossi. His development's been stalled, yes, but there's a huge year ahead for him, possibly this coming season. And this year's really going to be probably that make or break year, if we're being dead honest. It's the year where, Rossi should have taken that step to the NHL, and now we really should have decided that, yeah, he should be an NHL regular, or hopefully should make his full rookie year this coming season. But yeah, Rossi, the development, of course, has been stalled, and it's been slowed by a lot of other factors that, yes, may be issues, but I'm not too worried about it. I hope Rossi will make a good development nonetheless. Next up, then, we have Danila Yurov of the Minnesota Wild. Yurov is a right wing from Chelyabinsk, Russia, 6'1", 172 pounds. Drafted 24th overall in 2022. So, of course, a much more recent type draft player. And he's definitely been an interesting player nonetheless. Played games in the Continental Hockey League this season or the KHL. Had 59 games, had 6 goals, 6 assists for 12 points. Yes, those stats aren't the best, but of course the scoring in the KHL is much more different than it is the NHL. So you're off. 12 points isn't too bad for a guy who's firstly playing his first full year in the KHL, and is also very difficult to get minutes in the KHL too, because the coaches there are a little bit hesitant towards the younger players that are making their development. His KHL contract does reportedly expire soon, so there is the hope that he will make the jump to the NHL as early as next season, which is the possibility. So I would expect Yurov to be popping more up in the news as this season unravels. Next up, then, the final prospect for the forward core, I have Liam Ogren. Ogren's a left wing from Stockholm, Sweden, 6'1", 196 pounds. He was a U18 World Junior Gold winner in 21-22, so he has that international experience there, which separates him from Rossi and Yurov. Drafted 19th overall in 2022, and in 36 games played, he had 11 goals, 9 assists for 20 points, and that was with the Djurgårdens F of the Hockey Allsvenskan League. And he's a versatile player, has very high upside to be a solid player, and could be a good top 6 forward if once the season ends. So I really like that a lot there. I think Ogren could be a solid up-and-coming forward there for Minnesota, and could have a very bright future, and for sure could make the jump to the NHL. But if he wants to spend another year playing in the SHL, it wouldn't be a bad thing at all for his development whatsoever. But you do want him to come over soon. That's it for your forward core players. You move on to your defensemen. You got Brock Faber, who came from the Los Angeles Kings, and I believe Ogren did as well, which is kind of funny. But Faber, defenseman from Maple Grove, USA, 6'1", 201 pounds. Of course, one of the very notable defensemen in the league, probably one of the best prospects on the blue line for not just Minnesota, but in the NHL, for being honest. He's ranked up there. Drafted by LAK, traded to Minnesota in the Kevin Fiala deal, which was covered on this channel. All those years ago. It was only a year ago, but regardless. He did play 2 games with the Wild after leaving University of Minnesota, but with this past year with them, he had 38 games played, 4 goals, 23 assists for 27 points. Solid numbers there for a solid defenseman. Of course, he also has international experience, and now that he's done with the University of Minnesota, he is ready for his pro career. So by the time I do this next season, he won't be a prospect for Minnesota no longer. So something to keep in mind there. But yeah, I like Brock Faber a lot. I think he's going to be a great defenseman once he makes that jump to the NHL. And course, we'll find out this coming season. Next up, then, you have Carson Lambos is the other defenseman there from Winnipeg, Canada, 6'1", 196 pounds. Played for the now defunct Winnipeg Ice, and now they play in Washington, I believe. I forget their name. But he won the WJC 20 gold in 21-22, so he was part of that roster. And was drafted 26th overall in 2021. And in 61 games this past year with the Winnipeg Ice, as I mentioned, he had 12 goals, 36 assists for 48 points. Good numbers as a defenseman. Was also a key member in the Ice's success, even though the offense may not be fully there like other players on Winnipeg. But he was also the captain, too, so you got to factor that in as well. He was the captain of that Winnipeg Ice team, and it looks like he will jump to the pros now. So he will be in the NHL this coming season. So seeing all these guys come up, the possibility of, Marco Rossi, Urov, Ogren, and Faber, all those guys could make jumps to the NHL this coming season. So really, it's looking good right now for Minnesota for sure. But yeah, I like Lambos a lot. But what I like even more is the guy they have coming up in Jesper Wallstedt. And he fits the timeline perfectly. A goalie from Västerås, Sweden, 6'3", 214 pounds, won the WJC 18 and 18-19, drafted 20th overall in 2021. I remember that being a steal, especially with Sebastian Cossa going above him. And yes, it definitely looks like a steal as of right now. But of course, the weird thing is with goalies, they take a weird time to develop. So of course, we'll find out whether I'm right or wrong about that statement at the end of next season. But regardless, I think he's following the perfect timeline. Of course, Gustafsson had this great year with Minnesota, and now he got signed to that 3-year deal. Likely going to be the starter this coming season. And Fleury is on the last year of his contract, and arguably is going to be his last year in the NHL before he retires. By then, Wallstedt should be ready. So once Fleury's done, I believe Wallstedt will come up. But this past year with the Wild was no short of a success. 38 games played, 18, 15, and 5, a 2.68 goals against average, and a .908 save percentage. Good numbers there, and I would expect that he won't play like a full season, but I would imagine he plays probably like 3 to 6 games. I would imagine he'll come up and start with Minnesota, given there's no injuries that happen. If they want to take that right path of development, that's likely what is going to happen with Wallstedt. But nonetheless, I like him a lot there. Probably one of the best goalie prospects in the entire NHL for sure. Other prospects that Minnesota has in their system that are notable, you got forward Marek Kuznetsov, I believe I'm saying that right. Then you have Adam Beckman, Caden Bankier, Sammy Walker, and Charlie Stramel was their most recently drafted prospect in this past year's draft. And that is your prospect pool overview for the Minnesota Wild. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, and on the logo. They appreciate it. We're going to try and keep doing these before the season starts. I'm about halfway done, so this will definitely intercept with the season previews. But regardless, we'll get as many done as we possibly can before those previews start. And if not, then we'll just keep going. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.